Back in the chair at the IPL studio, and this is the Jess Address, and I have a very special guest with me. Laurie, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure, Jess.
You were a previous mayor of this beautiful place we live in.
I was, and before that, one of the last Shire presidents before we changed to a city.
So you have a rich history here in Rockingham to share with us.
I do. We came here in 1969.
Yep.
I'm a pharmacist, and we came to work for someone, and we never intended to stay. But we just fell in love with the place, Jess, and we've stayed here ever since.
It is a beautiful place to live, and I'm absolutely loving. I've spent 10 plus years here now, and I don't see us going anywhere else.
No, well, when we came here, there were 6,000 people, and now there's about 146, 7,000. Which we're a major city. In fact, I think we are the fourth or fifth largest city in the metro area.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Rockingham is a great place, but it's got a rich history and one that you're about to educate us on. Tell us about the Catalpa.
One of the difficulties with the history of Rockingham, Jess, is that there's very little evidence of what took place here in the 1800s. Port Rockingham was it was probably almost as important as the Fremantle port in terms of the young colony, because it's from here that all the income for the colony came through heavy timber and sandalwood and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
Port Rockingham had two of these magnificent jetties, and it was an inspiring place.
Yeah.
It really was. And, of course, all the timber came down from Jarradale, would you believe, on a wooden railway. And then eventually they had so many derailments that they sent to Britain, and the sailing ships brought over enough steel railway line to do that trip. Now, if you hop in your car and take a drive to Jarradale, you'll realise the enormity of the job, you know. So Port Rockingham is, but there's no evidence of it there now.
No, there isn't.
In its grandeur days, I say, you know, because when you see the sailing ships, which were at the end of Railway Terrace, sitting beside this jetty, it was an amazing sight. And but anyway, so in 1876, there was a breakout from the Fremantle prison. 6 convicts who are also Fenians. Fenians are a group of Irish people who are trying to win the freedom of Ireland from Britain.
Cheeky Irish people.
Yeah, they were. But anyway, they very cleverly escaped from Fremantle on basically an Easter Monday regatta holiday, and rode like heck with 3 carts and horses to Rockingham.
Now, it was a bit of a miracle because it was a bit of a stormy night, wasn't it, that I heard?
Yes, you're absolutely spot on, because once they'd engaged, got into the whale rowboat to go to the Catalpa. Catalpa was a whaling boat moored 8 miles southwest of Garden Island. It took them 24 hours to go from the beach of Palm Beach, which is down at the end of Railway Terrace, out to the Catalpa because of this enormous storm.
Now, we actually have a memorial, don't we?
We do. They were referred to as the wild geese, and there were 6 of them.
Yep. And so now we have the wild geese memorial that is just up from Palm Beach, is it not?
That's correct.
Yep. And so you want to create an event around the Catalpa.
We do. Basically, what we're going to do is reenact what took place. At 10 o'clock next Easter Monday, which is April the 10th, there will be a substantial Irish festival on Churchill Park. We're hoping to get at least 10,000 people there. And then at 10 o'clock, 3 carriages, horse-drawn, will come down with 6 prisoners, all dressed up in their good old Fremantle garb, prisoners' garb, and then they'll get out of the carriages and work their way down to the beach. They'll meet James Bell. James Bell was the postmaster in Rockingham then.
Yes.
And it's James Bell who eventually raised the alarm in Fremantle that these people had got away. So a number of things took place, and then finally they hopped into this rowboat, which was also, the boats I used to chase the whales in.
Yes.
Now, we've got one of those coming from Albany. it's an original replica of one of those rowboats, which took up to 16 people.
Wow.
Now, the great thing about Rockingham, of course, is that the deep water comes within 50 metres of the beach. So the Catalpa, which will be training ship Lewin, we've got the Lewin coming down for it. Now, the Lewin is a 3-masted boat, just like the Catalpa was, 20 metres longer, though, than the old Catalpa. So that'll be parked just opposite Churchill Park. So people will be able to see what's going on. And then we've got another ship which will represent the Georgette. Now, when James Bell raised the alarm in Fremantle, they sent out a steamship called the Georgette to find this Catalpa and get back these prisoners.
They weren't successful, obviously.
Well, they almost were successful. This all took place 8 miles southwest of Garden Island in international waters. So these two boats one was pursuing the other, and there were 2 cannonballs shot over the bow of the Catalpa, warning them that they meant business. And then Captain George Anthony, who was the captain of the Catalpa, and of course became a hero to the Irish, he put up his loud hailers and said to them, "You people realise that you are firing on the United States of America, a British ship firing on the United States of America." Now, they'd had a war in, 1812 between Britain and the US, which, of course, the US won. And of course, that challenge by Anthony was such that the captain of the Georgette backed off. He kept following Catalpa, but they were able to get away. And many months later, they ended back at New Bedford, which is in Massachusetts, on the east coast of America, thousands of sea miles away. And that's where the Catalpa had been built. That's where it had been bought by the Irish. That's where they got a crew. They went whaling way over to Fremantle, right under the noses of the British, and took these 6 Fenians away.
So this event is obviously theatre. It's going to have entertainment. It's going to have so much to look at with the boats and everything else. Why is this rich history important to you to get back into the lives and minds of the people here that live in Rockingham?
Well, if you look at these statistics, they say that 10% of Western Australia's population is Irish. They state they're Irish. But I think if you look at that, for instance, in my case, I don't put down that I'm Irish on the census, but 3 of my 4 ancestors are Irish. So if you look at that aspect of ancestry, then I would think you're probably looking at 30 to 40% of West Australians have Irish ancestry. Right?
Yeah, I have Irish ancestry. My grandfather came off the boat to chase gold in Kalgoorlie.
Exactly, and in actual fact. In actual fact, there are so many people around like that. So consequently, we are celebrating Irish history, but more importantly, we're celebrating an amazing international incident which took place in West Australian history.
Yes.
West Australian history. And that's why we're concentrating on getting a lot of Irish organisations to come down.
Yep.
But also, probably more importantly, to get the general population of Western Australia to come down too. Now, there is one other the icing on the cake, is that we're not only having this enormous outside play, which will take about an hour, but also we're actually having a film crew there. So we've got 2 photographers, we've got a wonderful narrator who will obviously be Irish, and he'll keep people informed as to what's going on. And there'll be an enormous screen on Churchill Park. So those people who can't get right up front and see what's happening can see it on this big screen. Paul Barron, who's probably Western Australia's best filmmaker, he's basically doing that for us and doing the script and doing the costuming and getting the actors. So all this is going to be extremely professional. It's got to be professional, otherwise there won't be a 2024.
And you're aiming on making this an event that it happens continually?
We are, because it's the nature of volunteers, Jess, that you can't do things every second year.
Yes.
Because once the enthusiasm trails off, it's not always easy to boost it back,
Yeah.
So in 2026, it'll be 150 years since this took place. And I was speaking, would you believe, on Fremantle Radio 2 Saturdays ago to Jim Ryan. Now, Jim Ryan is the great-grandson of Captain George Anthony, who was the captain of the Catalpa.
Okay.
And, of course, Jim Ryan, I think, would like to come over next year. We'd like to have him over next year, because if next year goes off with a bang, then it'll be assured for 24 to 26.
Can I tell you, you've obviously reached out to a lot of people and getting support. Tourism will increase in Rockingham. This will be almost an event that people are travelling from all over to come to. You're going to bring a lot of new people into Rockingham, plus give them some rich history as well as involve the locals. I think it's a win-win. Plus, you're getting involved, my favourite people, street hustle events.
Quite so. In fact, I'd say that the two groups that have been fundamental to this are Street Hassle,
yep,
Rotary, Palm Beach Rotary,
great organisation,
but also most importantly, Tourism Rockingham, Deborah Dew and the girls down there, Jodie Payne and that. And Emiliano Bizzotto, who's the president. They have just been wonderful, and they are providing us now with the umbrella under which all this is being managed.
Well, big props to them, because without people and volunteers and organisations saying that they'll put in their hand and they'll help, things like this don't get done. And hopefully this becomes an event that my children are involved in and things like that, and it becomes a rich part of Rockingham history, because it already is. It
certainly is, and if I can say this, just been speaking to Triss and that earlier on, volunteerism in Rockingham is very much alive and well. I've only got to look at this radio station, 150 volunteers. I look at what Rotary does, I look at what the Chamber of Commerce do, the Tourist Bureau. Honestly, without volunteerism in this town, it would be a much, much sorrier place. And that's why I sit in this chair. I give opportunity for community groups, things like that, to come out and get their information out to our wonderful community, because you can't act if you don't have the information, and we've got your information, and we're going to celebrate this event. Easter Sunday, did you say? Easter Monday.
Easter Monday, 2023.
April 10.
April 10?
Yeah.
2023, we have a massive event in Rockingham happening, and I'm sure IPL are going to play a big part of it. I'm nodding at Triss. He's nodding at me. We're going to be involved. I want to thank you for coming and joining and sharing those stories with us. I've really enjoyed listening to you, and I'm sure our listeners have as well.
And thank you very much, Jess, and you've been delightful.
Yeah, and you're coming back, aren't you? You've got more to tell us.
I'd expect so.
We're going to listen to a little bit of Ice House now. Thanks.